It's an unfortunate side effect or a byproduct of developing a skill to a high level of execution that it then will often appear to outsiders, to those who don't know what went into producing this skill, what levels of development you went through, what process you were involved in, that it will often appear as natural talent, as though it becomes to you effortlessly, and there's a flawless nature to it that makes people think there's no way this person could have learned that or just been bad at it one day and gotten to this point. It must have been easy for them. They must have just come to them naturally. And as a result, they're so much better than me. And so the problem is, the better you are at the skill in question, especially the better you are relative to the observer, the more they will in fact elevate your status even further away from them and create this gulf, this chasm between where you are and where they are, between the two of you, that makes it seem like that can never be bridged. You will always be this far up here and they'll always be down there. And even if they worked, they'd only come up a little bit and you'd always be way above here. And there's no way you could have ever been down here. That's also the implication, the inference that often follows. So what this does is, because you're so far away from them and they can't see how to get there or how you got there, it creates kind of a mystique around you, a mystery, a question of a curiosity around how fantastically skilled you may be in this area. And unfortunately, this often will mean that people will imagine to themselves, the outsiders, I can't do that. Like, this isn't something I could accomplish. The feats that this person has done are just way beyond my ken, way beyond my ability to progress and get anywhere close to that. And the problem is, as the person in question, you aren't beholden to the outsider. You don't necessarily owe them anything. You're not obliged to tell them how you did it. But if you allow that state to remain, if you allow that gulf to exist between you, and you do it knowingly, then unfortunately, that is going to be a great way to be revered. That's a great way to have an elevated status, to have people rave about you, or to always be above them in their minds and have them so that they never think they can arrive at where you are or do the things that you do. So you might be thinking, well, why would that be a bad thing though? Well, I mean, there's a great quote that kind of ties into this, right? It's an Albert Einstein quote, or at least I don't know if it actually is, because you have to track all these quotes down, but it sounds plausible. And the quote he said was, "The secret to creativity is knowing how to hide your sources." Now, what that means is, in this particular case, if you have an idea that's very innovative, or is a new take on something, or is something that someone hasn't heard before, so it's novel to them, oftentimes it may be innovative, and the way you've processed it and coming through your philosophy will have an innovative twist to it. But if someone knew all the kind of proto ideas and proto modes of thinking and the sources that you drew from to understand things and to maybe even react to and respond to and diverge from, then they'd kind of see a process going on there, and they'd see how the idea grew, and they wouldn't just see the finished product and think, that's brilliant, that's amazing, wow, what a great idea, oh, I can't think that way, I'm not a novel thinker. Now, in that sense, we're talking mainly about creativity, about ideas, about doing things differently. But I find it the same in terms of skills. And I know I myself fall into this trap whenever it's me who's not in the position where I have the elevated skill. I mean, when I look at like the comic books of Alan Moore, for example, it's inconceivable to me almost how he's able to structure them and how he gets to such fantastically well-crafted and well-pieced together machine-like endings. But from the beginning, when he's actually writing things month by month and he doesn't actually know, in theory, everything he's going to do 8 months from now, and yet he'll arrive at that particular area in that sense. By the way, part of that is because he doesn't necessarily know that, but he trusts in the process and has elevated his skills. I mean, you can go with another example. James Joyce is obviously a great one, because the more you learn about Finnegan's Wake, the more you research the background of this book and read people's academic papers on it and companion books to it, what you find is the more you bring to it, the more you take away. And so when you see some of these things, I actually don't think even some of them could have been consciously programmed into Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce himself. But some of the things that do appear to have been almost do defy even the concept, the simple concept of the author and what the author means in terms of his expression and his life experiences and how that's processed. It seems to just be too incredible. I mean, admittedly, he worked on this one book for a long time, but even so, it just seems inconceivable to anyone, as far as I know, who's even been in any basic creative endeavor. I mean, if we want to talk about music, a great example in music would be the musician artist Burial, who's kind of like a future garage slash, I mean, they called it dubstep originally, but it's not really anything like dubstep, what it became. who works with electronic music, and he's a very mysterious character because he doesn't do interviews and he's not someone who does public appearances. And so from the few interviews we've ever seen with him, assuming he's telling the truth, he appears to be some sort of crazed savant, because he's this guy where he doesn't seem to even have the basics of technology to make his songs with. He doesn't use any kind of advanced technology and plugins. He doesn't even seem to really understand the concept of drum programming and doesn't do it. He kind of does things like by hand, it appears, on computers and just pieces them together by ear. So in this sense, you just think, well, how could he do these things, and how could I ever get to this sort of a level? So I fall into that trap myself until I apply this thinking, and until, thankfully, in the cases of some of the people I'm talking about here, they give you an in and they kind of throw you a bone that, like, hey, I didn't just have this overnight. It wasn't just a thing about me being a genius. It's something that I worked at. Here's some of the things I did. Here's the ideas that I took from. And yeah, you might not do the exact same thing. Maybe that's not for you, but you'll see in your own way how you might be able to progress in your career or in your artistic endeavors or in your manners of expression, and how your ideas can become more advanced. And so studying people's processes for me has always been very interesting as someone who's trying to do creative, productive, prolific work. But also, I know that I've been in this position myself of being the person who was elevated to some degree. So obviously, one of the things over the last few years that I am actually often congratulated for or complimented for by others, even in the industry of esports journalism, is productivity. They're like, how do you record so many videos? Or how do you get so many videos out? You know, I have to do retakes, and I think of an idea, but then it falls apart in the middle of the video. Another aspect is being multidisciplined. So, okay, there's a lot of great journalists who mainly work in one game in esports. And then they're like, oh, how do you do all these different types of media and mediums within esports? How do you do audio, visual, text? How do you do entertaining aspects like I do on desks, public speaking, all these aspects, moving between different games, League of Legends, Quake, StarCraft, whatever else, Counter-Strike, Dota 2, whatever it might be. They're like, how do you have time for all these things? And one of the key things is, I may as well go on the other aspects, actually. So another area is, one of the things I became famous for was research and trying to do a lot of in-depth work. They're like, oh, where do you find these things? How do you find the time to do that? And then probably the most famous thing, actually, that I'm kind of known for as a piece of trivia is people always say, oh, you have such an amazing memory. How do you know every little detail? How can you recall something years ago when someone just brings it up now and you hadn't had time to do research right now and look it up, but you somehow know where it comes from? Now, one of the key things is, I purposely, in all these instances, whether I'm talking in general, when people ask me about in AMAs or whatever, go out of my way to explain these things, how I got to these points, the flaws I had, the failings I had, how I improved a lot, what I improved on, what things I heard, what I did, etc. And particularly anyone in the esports industry who I'm at least friendly with and is polite to me, I always try to give them encouragement and try and break this stuff down, because my philosophy is to demystify myself. I don't want a mystique to exist around any of those aspects. And as a result, to not only be elevated myself to some ridiculous level, but even worse, for other people who might be able to do things in their lives or express themselves in a certain way, to then think, I can't do that. That's not me. That person has special talents. He's an X-Man. I'm just a normal person. He has the mutant gene and I can't do it, because that's not the case whatsoever. So it happens that because I've studied the processes of a lot of the people I consider great artists and fantastic people at expressing themselves creatively, that I found out through their processes some of the aspects of how they do it, and it's helped me explain my own. So one of the things I always try to do whenever I get the opportunity is to explain. I want to explain, what am I doing? You know, what was I doing with that piece there, or with these aspects of my work? How am I doing it? What are the techniques I'm applying? What did I learn along the way? What are the pitfalls? How I actually got to the place where I could do a piece of work like that, a holistic piece that overall looks fantastic and very well polished, but I had to learn all these key aspects to add together and then learn from this and then make mistakes here and add in something different and try something experimental over here. Not only just what I did, how I did it, how I got here, but what did I go through to get here? What did I learn? What changed me? What did I change? What did I try to learn? What did I try to do along the way? And more importantly, to not just give the basics, which is important. I think it's very important for people just to encourage them. But when you get the chance to communicate advanced ideas as well, but to do them in a more simple fashion, to take ideas that do take like 10 years of experience and thinking about this and adding this and little tweaks and epiphanies, and try to figure out through articulation and expression, because obviously that's an area of my work that I've invested a lot of time in, how to explain them pretty simply, to kind of give the other guy not only encouragement, but hey, here's even a head start, mate. Here's kind of like the cheat codes to get the first level if you put in the work, and you can kind of skip out some of the trial and error I had to make and some of the fuck ups I made where there wasn't someone for me to follow, or some of these things hadn't been done in my particular area, and I was trying to like cross-pollinate from a different field and do something, and maybe I didn't always pull it off initially. It took a while to get to this level of doing this. And hopefully they can learn from my mistakes and my experiences and maybe even get wherever they're going quicker than I got to wherever I'm going. So one of the ways you do this is not only do you explain what you're doing and the techniques, but you show your sources. You show what your sources of inspiration are. You show your sources of techniques are. You show what the sources are of your experience, the mistakes you made. And part of that, and this is a key aspect, and this is why a lot of people don't want to demystify themselves, is not only do they want to maintain that status and the golf even, because the golf makes the person treat you in a very important fashion, but they don't want to demystify themselves because to do so nearly always involves showing your flaws. Telling people where you weren't good, telling people why you weren't good, telling people how you fucked up and tried things and it took a lot of effort, and sometimes you ran into a brick wall and you did the wrong thing and you went down the wrong path for a while and you wish now, oh, I wish I'd just known this beforehand, and giving them the shortcut that you didn't have. Some people don't want to do that. I do want to do that. I want to show these aspects so that then other people feel like they can do it. Now, in doing so, I do lose some status. I lose any of that epic mystique and nature and the idea that this guy's just like a hermit, squirreled away, doing all this insane stuff. No, you lose a lot of that. But you know what? I actually do gain as well. I mean, maybe one day on this channel, I'll do a video about the concept of altruism because I think it's kind of an illusion. But I'll essentially outline some of that now when I say that I actually gain from demystifying myself. Because personally, I want there, even in the field of esports journalism, to be more great esports journalists. I want some of the people out there I see who have talent to continue developing themselves, to not think, oh, well, I'm just a writer and I can't do videos. Says who? I wasn't a video creator. Started doing videos myself. Was pretty bad at it to begin with. Took me many years to get any kind of confidence, to get good at it, to fill out my process. So I want other people to become multidisciplined, to express themselves in whatever medium fits best. I want them to improve, and I want selfishly to be able to read and consume more great esports content myself, not have to make it all myself, and obviously in that sense not be able to enjoy it quite the same way because I kind of know what's coming and I set all the things up along the way. I also want to not only enjoy the fruits of other people's labor, but like I kind of alluded to there, I don't always want to be the one where if I have a topic that's interesting, oh, what about that player? I wonder what his history is, or I wonder why that player improved. I don't always have to be the one to go and do the research for that. I want to see someone else do it and give me a new take on it, even some kind of fresh. Because that's a key aspect to understand, is that even if someone's learning from my mistakes and the techniques and all these sorts of things, they're not just aiming, they're not all going along the same path I am and just going to catch up to me or always be behind me or whatever model you want to use. They're going to go their own path. And as a result, if they do an article that I might have liked to have done or might like to read or could have done, they're not going to do it the way I do it. And they're not going to think about it the way I think about it. Therefore, that's going to be what an enjoyable delight that will be for me to experience it in a different manner. Oh, I never would have thought of it that way. Oh, he's modeled it this way. That's very interesting, actually. Let's see where this goes down the line, and let's see how consistently this fits in with the philosophy of how this guy writes his other things and where he puts someone in the hierarchy. So I am absolutely willing personally to give up credit or mystique or whatever else if it means I can empower other people to be able to express themselves and to think in different ways. Because I don't want people to think there's this gulf between where we are. I don't want people to think that, oh, you have strengths that I can never have. I want people to understand all of my strengths were once weaknesses once upon a time. Or if I had strengths, they would have been, if we could compare them to now, so negligible, they'd only seem like a slight strength. And I figured out how to emphasize them, how to exaggerate them, how to make them better, how to take away some of the weaknesses so that they seem to shine through as natural talents where they weren't necessarily. I want people to know that, you know what, I failed more times than practically any other esports journalist has ever done content. I've had thousands and thousands of failures over my career. I've done lots and lots and lots of pieces. Lots of them weren't necessarily the best thing I could have done or exactly what I would have wished to have had and all that. And I didn't just go, oh, well, delete all those, can only go for 10 out of 10s here and just release like 50 pieces over a lifetime. No, I've failed many times. And you know what? It was in no way a straight line from A to B, from like failure to success, from starting to now. It was a massive twist and turn and going backwards 5 steps and going forwards 3 steps and sometimes getting an advantage and fucking that up and other things go. It was in no way a straight path, and it won't probably be for most people, but I stuck at it. And there was an interview I saw with Alan Moore, one of my favorite all-time artists. I'll link it up there if I can find it, where he talks about this concept, right? But he talks about in the concept of awards, where he says that he doesn't like awards. Now, this is someone, by the way, where in the field of comics, he's won pretty much every award you could win. And if he continued to put out fan favorite comics, would probably win most of the awards for the rest of his life and have like some unachievable status of like all the awards on his shelf, you know. But this is someone where he made a really interesting point, okay, which tied into this. And that's one of the reasons I want to link this video if someone wants to watch it, is he takes the concept of awards, of elevating someone, saying they're the best, and talks about the harm it can do, actually, and talks about like how the anguish this causes people who don't win the awards, etc., and don't get the recognition, all this. And what he compares it to is almost a kind of, it's an equivalency to a kind of social wealth. And it's the idea that there's only so much of it, so we can give praise to this guy, praise this guy. Oh, we haven't got any left for this guy. In fact, to give praise to this guy, we can't give any over here. And so instead, what he wants to do in general is, it's not about awards. It's not about saying who the best is. It's about acknowledging what everyone's done well and what everyone's done in a positive manner. Now, by the way, this is totally separate from the area of critique. He's not addressing that whatsoever. And the notion is, rather than becoming this guy who lives up, I mean, he's already got quite a mystique about him, but by opening up in this way, he doesn't just become this impossible to reach godlike figure. He stays on the ground to some degree. And yeah, he's a very talented person who's fantastic at expressing himself and has very interesting ideas, but he's still a person and he's down here with the rest of us. And that's the way he wants to model himself, and he wants other people to think of himself. And so I think that's a very interesting concept. And in general, it's something I like to do and will continue to do. It's an inherent part of my philosophy over the years. And it's certainly something I would like to see others do, because I mean, I'd like to know how they did it. I'd like to know what they do differently. I don't want it to seem like there's this gulf between us. And I think we all benefit when we do that. And that there's not really anything beyond almost like a teenage, adolescent fantasy of being the great man that would make you want that mystique. I mean, what does it benefit you really? You can still do your work, you can still express yourself, and you can encourage and enrich the lives of others if you demystify your successes.